Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host Rob, this is my presenting voice. It's Monday night, it's party night.
Every night is party night.
Every night is party night. We're live in the Honest Wargamer studio. I'm joined by my Monday show host, Mr. Nathan Prescott. Nathan Skoll.
Skoll, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, how are you? Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Yes, can't complain.
That's what I like to hear. Hello everyone.
And you?
Fan-dabby-dozy.
Fan-dabby-dozy.
Is how some people would describe it. I just want to say hello to everyone in the Twitch chat, obviously. Morehammer, Jim980, Tristan, one of our mods, Arkian, our other mod, Heinrad, LLV, Stats Machine himself. I want to say thank you to everyone on Patreon and Twitch, obviously. You guys are amazing and you help the show get bigger and better every week. Well, that's what we're hoping. Just like Heinrad in the weekend, who's just subscribed for 15 months in a row, just now. To Templar, hello. So thank you to all you guys. You guys are incredible.
Yeah.
We appreciate support and love you. Hey, Hellstorm Dan, he says, hey Nathan, fuck you.
Fuck you too.
Fuck you too. Evening everyone, how are you all? All by Phil says Skaven, after subscribing for 11 months, so I assume what he's saying is he likes them, I guess. So, also, if you're listening on the podcast, you guys are the tits. Thanks for joining us. You guys are wicked. I hope everything's going good. Let us know what's going on. Tweet us if you always watch it back. Leave some comments, or if you watch on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
I'm just about to sneeze.
Cool. Oh, that's great. I was
Great
ready.
TV. Great TV. What do professionals do? I'm going to Google that later. That'll be my thing. Biological hippo. I've definitely never heard that name out before. Hello, evening. I hope everyone has a good start to the week. I hope everyone has had a great start to the week as well. Now, don't forget, everyone, one of the things that's been amazing in this week is we started last Monday. We started a fund to get Clint from CanCon, who does CanCon for free, over to the UK, where the head of Bobo, John, who was on the show last week,
That guy.
has challenged him on a Friday night live stream duel, Australia versus the UK. Yeah, we started that GoFundMe, and since GoFundMe, 440 quid has been put into the pot, which is halfway there.
Yeah.
So to everyone who donated the money, you guys are amazing, right?
Yeah, that's great. Because the CanCon, the way they do the tickets is when you buy the ticket, the money, you buy the ticket from the con organizer, and then Clint only goes and claims money for like prizes and stuff. So he gets bugger all out of it. In fact, he has to put money into that venture. You would say.
He does. Yeah, it costs him money. Yeah. And then everyone's also been harassing him to do a winter con, which I'm almost certain he said he's gonna do. And then when he listens, I just want when he's painting, I'm hoping that while he's painting and listening to the podcast, he just slips because I've said that. Leah probably asks, how many times am I going to keep taking my hat off? We get it, you had a haircut. I don't know if you noticed, but I always take my hat off. But yes, I have cut off
I
my
scalped
hair.
him.
Yeah,
last night.
Nathan scalped me. We played Age of Sigmar, and then he cut off my hair as a victory piece. As you can see, based on Nathan's head, I beat him loads of times. I've actually buffed his hair away into the...
Fuck you.
Fucking got you. Right, so hello, everyone in the Twitch chat, like Speckles, I hope you're good. How's everyone doing? The show today is going to be on two interesting pieces, I think. So to let you know what's going to be in the show. First, we're going to have a conversation about games we played this week and talk to the Twitch chat a little bit. After that, we're going to do an editorial piece. So I've been reading up for a day and a bit about how different games companies deal with their employees and going to tournaments.
Okay.
Yeah? So a conversation we're going to have is about playtesters, and a conversation is going to be about employees of Games Workshop going to match play tournaments, and we're going to have a big holistic conversation about it with no end goal. We're just having a chat. Yeah? Okay with that? Then after that, we're going to talk about the fact we're still waiting for the FAQ for FEC and Skaven, so not going to do the book reviews of those yet. But what we are going to do is we're going to talk about how we think those two books are going to shift army lists and builds that we've seen over the past 6-7 months, and what we think that's going to do in the future. Yeah. And then some of the problem, if you've already got an existing army, let's say Seraphon, you're like, oh, I'd really like to keep playing my Seraphon. How am I going to do that in the future? Maybe have a conversation about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But first. Yeah. But first, we're going to ask everyone. We're going to ask you, Nathan. Have you played any Warhammer in the past week or so, and how's it gone?
I have played some Warhammer in the past week.
Yeah.
I played with some Iron Jaws against some imaginary things.
You played against my endless spell list for Chaos Dwarves, didn't you?
Yeah.
And how did it go?
Went alright, yeah. I mean, I got slaughtered, but I managed to get all the gold, so that was the main thing.
Yeah, you did. So that was, I suppose that's, instead of asking me the conversation in return, that's the first thing I can say. Hi Cypher, hi Slanice, our other mod in the chat. So one of the things I've been experimenting with, and you've heard me, if you listened to the show before, one of the things I've been talking about is the fact that I think that the endless spells are an amazing addition to the game, I think, but also that there's a skill you can learn with the endless spells. So I put 5 on my list. So I played a game against you on Wednesday, then I played a game against Nikos on the stream with 5 endless spells, 4 wizards, 5 endless spells. So I think I committed something like 500, 550 points in my army list to that mechanic.
Yeah.
And the thing I learned is that I was rubbish with it, but that there's loads of options. And it wasn't until I started to put them on the board, I was like, do you know what? This is brilliant. It's so impactful. And that's the thing I learned. Like, when the game against you was rubbish, because everything I was trying to do, I was just like, I'll put that there. That's a terrible place to put it. I'll put that there. That's a terrible place to put it. But I learned it was a bad place to put it. So like that was a really fun game that we played. Yeah. Well, that was quite interesting. Plus, Iron Jaws beat Legion of Asgore. I mean, based on LOV's stats, you should never beat me. So well done.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, happy with that?
Yeah.
Have you played any other?
Yes. So I played last night. I just played some of my unpainted gits against JJ's Skaven. JJ's a local lad who plays.
Great fella.
Yeah.
Also, he's starting a YouTube show where he does book reviews. No,
film reviews.
Film reviews. Yeah, film
His
reviews.
review of the 300 is
His review of
sparkling.
300 big hard lads went on a fight and they lost. So if you get the opportunity to check out, but so you played against his Skaven army.
Yeah.
So the new Skaven book.
Yeah.
So what was your first impression of it as a book to play against?
Oh, they've got just so many. They've got loads of tools on there. They've got tanky things. They've got hitty things, and they just do loads of damage at range.
Which are two of the main things.
Yeah.
Shooty things is another.
They've got loads of damage at range, and a lot of it's mortal wound damage, just at range.
Yeah. Which is one of the conversations we're going to have later, right? About how we think that's going to affect the game overall.
Yeah. So yeah, they're really good.
And he had the endless spell,
that warp storm thing.
Yeah, the warp storm.
It's the three pylons of Skaven lightning, and yeah.
And what did you think?
They were very painful.
Very painful. Were they very, very frightening? Warpstone and lightning.
Yeah, it was exactly how it was.
If someone can make that I think someone should make that as a meme.
You want to
personally.
turn the heater off? It's getting warm in here.
It's gonna be. This is the first time I've been hot in here for 3 months. I'm like, oh gosh, I do want to turn the heating off. There you go. Just going to read what the guys in the chat are saying, Nath. The Templars has played a 1,000 point with my Slash versus Iron Jaws, and he won turn 3 and summoned a Keeper of Secrets, which was cool. Cypher says I smacked.
Summoned a keeper in a 1,000 point game.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Sounds great.
Cypher's 42 says I smacked down a temple nest with my 1.5k Weird Fist the other day.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're excited about that.
That's great.
Some event news from LLV. An endless spell heavy Zinch list took down a 36-man 2-dayer in Denmark. Also, the Danish meta looks rock hard. So some really solid lists.
Cool.
And Angle says a friend of mine is playing endless heavy bone splitters using the DOK casting buffs to sling big spells around.
Yeah, that'd be quite good actually, I reckon.
Yeah.
Bone splitter endless spell list, yeah,
I
because
think
they've got crazy wizards.
And they got some cheap wizards as well, right?
Yeah, fairly cheap. Yeah.
And then Angle says I chucked my pendulum through some ballistae, then made a portal and lobbed a purple sun through it. That's great. Ruskell says second game of AOS 2, and I tried Geminis with my Deepkin. My word, they're good. They are really good. So I hope that's working out for people. Donaldinho's here. Par's here. That's great. Pirate Bear Games. Evening, Mr. Kapowski. Donaldinho says I left my headphones at home, so can't listen to this. I'm so disappointed.
It's just watching.
He's just watching. Jesus Christ.
What did he say?
If
Tell you what, I used Scuttletide again last night. It's
Yeah.
such a good spell.
Such a good spell. So solid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. I saw you use the mushroom as well.
Yeah. And I managed to throw it far enough this time. I threw it 19 inches, so that was quite good. Over a hill. And
Mushroom bomb!
and got it into 3 blocks. So that was quite good. Killed 10 in 1 block and about 5 and 5. So about 20 in 1 lob.
That's amazing.
That was great.
That's amazing. Speckle says he tested his FEC army against a horrific Stormcast Eternalist and I smashed him. And Donaldino says there's 7 people on Facebook. Shout out to the 7 people on Facebook. Also, Matthew Jarvis has just pledged $1 on Patreon. So thank you, Matthew Jarvis.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, Matthew. To you. The next time I buy a banana, that's who I'll thank. That's how I do my shopping now. I actually check off the Patreon people. I'm like, thank you very much. Angle says, he runs a profit and like 3 DOKs. They're cheap, so they get and get such big casting buffs. It's actually a really solid army build.
Yeah.
Someone should look at that. That could be
bonus
very scary.
Pretty sweet.
And you could ally in a couple of the Moonclan Shamans for some of those, like for Scuttletide.
Yeah, I guess you could ally in a Moonclan one with the Arachna Cauldron if you wanted some of their like Always Strikes Last ones and stuff like that.
You could do that too, yeah, that would be really fun. Oh, Biological Hippo has also pledged $1 on Patreon. Woohoo! Patreon's on fire, $2. Thanks, Biological Hippo. And also LOV has said 69 viewers. That's just rude. Right, Pete Pratt. I tracked some evocators from moving all game with endless spells last night. That's great fun. Because if you've only got the 1 unbind, right?
Yeah.
So, so if you guys are interested, what I took in you can watch the bat rep back on YouTube or on Twitch if you want. So I played Nikos's army. So I took Palisades, which is amazing. And the more I use it, the better I find it. Because I think it's cast at 18-inch range.
Yeah.
Which is, like, you've got to get wholly within. That's challenging, because it's like... So I ended up putting it long ways a lot of the time if I wanted to get it quite far. But what I found really interesting was, like, its aura to minus to hit. Because I already have a minus to hit in my army. Plus Geminis, which I always take. My general was -1 to hit. It just became really, really solid. And then I took Shackles, which ended up doing like, I didn't cast it against you, but against Nikos, it ended up doing like, I don't know, like 12 to 15 mortal wounds.
You did cast it against me.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, it was in amongst my hard boys.
Oh yeah, I remember. Okay, yeah. So that was really good. Geminis was amazing as well. Pendulum I used terribly against you, but then when I played Nikos, I got it way better. And it's so impactful if you cast it, like you say, on the second turn. I was like...
Yeah, I think that's one that I might be dragging back into the Gits, is the Pendulum one. Because it's a good one.
Yeah, really, really good. Yeah. So that, Maelstrom I didn't get off the whole time, but it's cast at 18-inch range, then it moves 8, so it's 26 inches away. So even if your opponent... so if you make it so you don't cast it 8 inches off the board, so when you eventually move... Like what I mean is your opponent can't move it off the board, therefore dispel it. I feel that that's good. I might change it for Quicksilver Swords, but really, like, you could maybe spend only 100 points and have 5 or 6 endless spells in your list. Yeah. And there's so much utility in it. And
Maelstrom's probably quite good against the Skaven build.
Yeah, I think it's really... Because it's quite hard to cast their spells generally. Yeah. They've got bonuses to cast, but your Unbind... Because basically what you're getting is a rerollable Unbind with Maelstrom, right? Yeah. But the thing that I think is a takeaway for me from having played those games, and I want to do more this week before we go into Sheffield, is actually, if I've got any advice, if anyone cares to take some advice, even if it's just for some casual games, your next 5 or 6 casual games, I'd take 5 or 6 endless spells and just play with them, because their impact on the game is quite big if you know how to use them. But most importantly, I think the thing that I'm slowly starting to learn is if my opponent uses them, I want to know how best to manipulate them or utilize them. Yeah. Like mirror matches are interesting, right? Because you both have got like, you're like, oh, how are you going to use your unit of that I use?
Yeah, I always like to play against people that play my army, definitely.
Yeah, so I find that super interesting. But I think the endless spell game could be, you could actually develop more skills with those endless spells than your opponent. So your opponent might bring a tool for you to use better than they realise how to use it.
Yeah.
And you can think around it. Because I was like, cause that's what I think Palisades is. I think Palisades is one of those spells no one's going to dispel because you're like, I can't be bothered. Or Shackles. But if you take both, they're kind of like, I don't want to waste my casting rolls, which are really significant if we look at something like Flesh Eater Courts at the minute. Yeah. I don't want to waste my casting rolls on unbinding them, but if I don't, they can actually be massively impactful. Yeah. So I think there's loads to learn there. Yeah? No?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think they're great. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so that's my takeaway. And I think that if what endless spells I'm talking about are, and you're more than willing to disagree, I think Geminids is the first one you put in your list, in my opinion. This is if you don't have access to endless spells, and then there's a big conversation. So that's 40 points. Then you take Shackles, so that's 20 points, so now you're on 60. Then you take Palisade, which is 30. So that you've spent 90 points. And I would say I would take those three, take 90 points out your army, put those three spells in, and it will change the game for you, in my opinion. And then beyond that, I'm really interested in what to add, if I'm honest with you. Pendulum is really good, but it's expensive.
My top choice is Pendulum.
Your top choice is Pendulum?
Yeah, at the moment.
And if everyone in the chat could also put your choices in there, I'd be really interested in that. Yeah, go on, sorry.
Yeah, Pendulum, I like it a lot. And Quicksilver Swords, I really like that one.
Quicksilver Swords?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't put it in my, because I've got a Chaos list. I think it's going to be amazing against Skaven, but like I don't have it in my list because I don't want it used against me specifically, because it can be really, really impactful.
Yeah. And the portal's quite good depending on what sort of spells you got. But the portal, you have to be careful with the portal with the interaction with the endless spells. I like that it's quite a safe thing to use if you're going to use the portal. So when a predatory spell goes through the portal, it does so at the end of its move. So normally, something like the Pendulum will do damage at the end of its move. So it finishes its move and then it goes through the portal. So it can't do damage once it's come through the other side of the portal until the next time it's moved.
Yeah.
So you got to be aware of that. Also, you can't use the portal to extend the range of which you're casting endless spells. So endless spells you can't alter how you set them up, the ranges and everything like that.
So if it says wholly within 12 inches, it's set wholly within 12 inches. And if it can move, it moves through the portal.
Yeah.
Well,
it moves.
Yeah.
It doesn't move through the portal, so it does its natural move, and then the portal picks it up and throws it out the other side.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Nice.
So I think the portal's really good, but it's quite a tough thing to use. So, and then again, it depends on your own innate spells, but I think the portal is pretty good, and the Balewind are quite good.
I think the Balewind's really strong, potentially, but I don't know, the static nature of it. It's good, especially in objective play, once you get them on there, and something like 3 places of power, or 3 places of arcane power, it also seems to have a big advantage as well, if you've got the right sort of caster. And then if you can, obviously, if you take things like Griffeather Charm, so you put them on top of a Balewind, and then they're -1 to hit, then they're -1 to hit from something that you've got surrounding them, you can actually do, you pretty impactfully, keep that unit safe for those missions. So again, you're spending 40 points? 60 points for 40 points for Balewind for potentially winning an objective, winning one of the scenarios. I was just more I might post out on Twitter, or I might post out on our Facebook, kind of my list to date that we can all have a row about. But your top is Pendulum, whereas my top is Geminids. Portal, would you say you take?
Yeah, I really like the portal, but it's quite, like I said, it's quite an intricate one to use. Yeah, I'm interested in, I noticed in Australia that quite a few of them took Ravernak's Jaws.
Yes.
And I still don't know why.
I think it's just because it looks cool. Yeah. Although it's quite a big base, so if you do get to the thing I found again, which I think is really interesting, if you commit to it, being able to move block. Now this is the thing that happens a lot in 40k, especially with planes. But being able to move block with endless spells is actually huge, especially if you're one of the newer factions that can like double up on the Palisade and either Scuttletide or the Rat Wall. Yeah. You could potentially
actually the Jaws now with the Skaven thing as well. The Jaws are actually probably quite good.
Yeah, but I think they're lower down realistically. I think Shackles is absolutely huge, especially in a game where people are looking to like not move out their deployment or they're looking to castle up. You could really do something quite powerful with Shackles, in my opinion. I think it's wicked, especially fishing for mortal wounds, because it's just some great conversation to have. Let me see what the guys in the chat are saying. I think I could talk about this all day. It's the most exciting thing about Age of Sigmar at the moment for me.
Yeah. I'm quite tempted with Shackles. I didn't like Shackles before because the range is still not that. I mean, it's great. It's pretty good. Yeah. But from your deployment zone, you've got to have, unless you're being attacked, you've got to have moves. So it's normally a second turn spell.
Yeah.
But with things like Hand of Gork and Skitterleap and stuff like that, then it becomes a bit more interesting. Because
with Skitterleap and Hand of Gork, it's horrible because you can shut down an army. So just read out what the guys are saying, and then we'll talk about that. We'll come back to that. Hellstorm Dan says Shackles, and then a lot. Budtastic, Mere Mouse, and Milky Badger say Cogs, and let's talk about Cogs as well. Cogs is essential for Sylvaneth, I think, says P. Geminid says Denise. Speckles is hoping for 4-1 this weekend, so 4 losses and that big win. Tyler Jacobs 1 says he's building 120 clan rats.
It's a tough ask, but he should be able to get that win, I reckon.
Yeah.
Especially if he doesn't go out drinking on the Saturday, maybe first thing on a Sunday can find a nugget and...
Yeah, he get that win in. Find someone who's really struggling. Stevie754 says +1 to save stacks with cover 2 so you can get +2 easy. Yeah, absolutely. So you can do that. We're talking about the Bellwind, obviously. So you can get some pretty safe wizards. But I think we'll get, when we talk about the Skaven shooting, we'll say that that's probably not true anymore. And then Dudar Day and Just Nikos are having a chat fight. So if you'd like to get involved in the chat fight, join those Wargamer Twitch chat, where one of the moderators will probably ban you for 5 seconds because they care not for your opinions. Then Sunny says Ravanax rules because you can set up your wizard inside it.
I think he's pulling your leg.
I think he is pulling my leg. Speckles, you can't say I'm worse till he actually beat me. And Lubinsky says Cogs is amazing in Nighthorn, which, because they obviously can deep strike. I think in any deep striking armies, Cogs is pretty...
Yeah, Cogs is great.
Yeah.
Still.
And then OJ says popping Shackles in front of a Wildwood when camping an objective is super effective. That's horrible. I'll tell you what, one of the combinations I think is pretty scary is the Guardian of Souls from Nighthaunt with a Mortality Glass and then Shackles.
Yeah.
I think that's horrible. So that makes you charge on a D6 as opposed to like 2D6. Then that plus Shackles, you really like and also there's obviously there's movement debuffs inside Legion and the Gash as well. So your ability to just hamper units, I think that's an interesting combo. What do you think about Shackles? Because I don't agree with the chat about Shackles. I understand it in some army builds, but overall, I don't think not Shackles. Sorry, Cogs. What do you think about Cogs?
I've used Cogs quite a few times, and with some armies, it's pretty sweet. I mean, it gives you that boost to speed if you want it, but there's also, if you slow down time for that extra spell, that's really quite good. So if you are going with an in the spell list, it's quite good just as a buff for your wizards to get the extra spell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and makes your wizard more tanky as well. So.
Yeah. So what about Spin? Mamdare, thanks for subscribing for 12 months in a row. Happy birthday! And he says Speckles is still rubbish. Yeah, still rubbish. He's subscribed for 12 months, and then he's gone. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call Speckles shit at Warhammer. That's what I'm going to do on my 1-year birthday. And also, thanks for the bits donation as well. And then just to follow up with what Lubinsky was saying, he says, Rob, yes, Rob, and Briar Queen for half movement on top of all of that. So the Briar Queen's ability inside that. So you can really shut down movement.
Well, yeah, you can do the same thing with that Skaven, that funny triangle job, and then put some shackles on them, tie them to the triangles, and then send a warp gale through them so that they can't move or fly as well. That really screw their life.
Well, let's talk about that. C Black, thanks for. I spoke to him earlier. He's lovely. Me and Charles Black are going to be having a conversation at some point.
Oh, okay.
We're going to do a podcast, a little chat. AD Max just come in and said, "You have to admit, bud, you are poo." Whatever. Yeah. So the thing I don't like about cogs is if you bring it to buff you, you're buffing your opponent. Now it makes sense, especially like with Gabriel Shortheart charges, right? You're like, I'm crazy powerful now. Or if you rely on deep striking units, so you've got 9-inch charges, and then you're like, I want it to be a 7 rerollable. It's way more likely to happen. Like, I completely get it. Like, when you put it inside, giving it to your opponent as well, that can be pretty big, I find. Like, and do you not think that there's
It can be in some cases. So I think, yeah, it is. Obviously, you've got to be careful. But if you've got a unit that you can use to pin your opponent in place, and then the cogs makes that more reliable, then it doesn't matter if they got +2 movement if they're just hemmed in.
No, I do.
So it is. I think it's a bit more situational than some people think it is, because, like you say, it does that buffing of your opponent.
That's the situation for me. Like, so I build an army list, right? That's got 2 very expensive deep striking units. Yeah. So what I do is I take maybe like a reroll charge thing, yeah, like as a command trait or something. I'm talking just like generally at this moment. And then what I do is I say, what I'm going to do is buff up some casting, or make sure I'm always near some arcane. I'm going to cast cogs, speed up time. I'm going to deep strike, and then I'm going to charge a 7 rerollable. I'll make it most of the time. That's your strategy going into the game. The problem with that is it leaves no room for adaptability. It doesn't. You don't say to yourself, okay, well in this situation, give him +2 move to that unit that's got that army that's got amazing chaff and screens, and then flying units that can pop over and do the damage that I don't want to happen. I now don't have that strategy that I previously had.
Yeah. Well, then you've got to have the flexibility to do the other things with the cogs, so slow down time and just make your wizard better. I mean, it's the same with all the endless spells, effectively.
I don't think that's true.
Most of them.
If you're doing damage.
Most of them, so like most of the predatory ones will move around. So there's a good chance that you might get attacked by your own spell. So they do. There is that chance with the predatory ones, at least, that stuff can.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There is a chance.
You can mitigate, so you can play for it. So make sure that you're never within range of it to attack you in a single turn. But over a couple of turns, it might still get into you. You know, so it's the same with the cogs. So you have to play for it. So you can't. It's the same with all of them. It's like, oh, I'll just throw shackles up there, and then suddenly, oh no, I've got to go there. Fuck. You know, so you got to. Yeah, obviously you got to think about where you're placing everything, or if you're going to speed up time. It's pointless speeding up time if you're deciding I'm just going to sit on these objectives and I'm going to speed up time. Just make your opponent get to you quicker. That would be silly. So, yeah.
That's my point. I think if it's your only strategy going into the game, is that deep striking.
Yeah,
now you're right. People can adapt, but some people don't do that, or they don't build armies that can adapt.
Well, then they're not ever.
Well,
they're going to always struggle.
That's exactly. This is. I'm giving advice. I think.
Fuck
I'm trying
those
to
guys.
Fuck those guys. Yeah, I agree. Stop banging my camera. What are you pulling? I've been shaky. Everyone can't see my new hair, and it's upsetting me. This is it, by the way.
What, your camera? Oh.
Get off. I just want to read. Charles Black, thank you also for the bits donation. That's great of you. And also, Speckles has just offered out Nikos live on air to play a game of Age of Sigmar and see who the winner can be. That's going to be hilarious to watch someone lose on the first turn. Angle says, I feel cogs are for using once or twice in the game to gain a vital advantage and dispelling them immediately. So, yeah, like, potentially, like, use them and then just be like, right, take them off the board now. I've used them for what I needed to achieve.
Yeah, or just slow them down.
Yeah.
This can never be a bad thing if you slow down time.
Time. Grob just says, when I first tried shackles, I bought them to slow down my opponent, but I was surprised, and this is really key. Rob Ellis, thanks for subscribing, by the way. When I tried shackles, I bought them to slow down my opponent, but I was surprised with how much damage they dealt out, since you get a roll in both your opponent and your own movement phase. That's why I like them, and I think the thing to talk about with that, I don't want to miss too much of the chat, but the thing with that is when you take into account the new Skaven spell. Right? Do you want to tell everyone what it does? I'm sure everyone knows, but it's worth repeating.
So it's got three pylons,
pillars, yeah,
that spark across each other. So and basically, if you're within 6 inches of them, on a 4-up you take D3 mortal wounds, but on a 6-up you take D6 mortal wounds, an unmodified 6. But if you're close to 2. Then you get +1 to that 4, so it's a 3-up. And if you're close to all 3, you get +2, so it's a 2-up for the D3 mortal wounds. And at 6 inch, it also then means you can't run if you're affected by this thing, and you can't fly. So
it's massively impactful. That plus shackles can potentially...
so they form an equilateral triangle,
yep.
7 inch from each vertex to each other. So yeah, it's quite a big area as well.
It's really big. It's 6. It's 6 + 7 + 6, right? Yeah. So it's
roughly.
But so you can effectively it can have like a 19-inch width, so like a third of a board almost. And yeah, really impactful. That plus shackles, and I think to reinforce what Grobdugger says, shackles is so powerful there because you fish for 6s doing D3 mortal wounds. The movement is incredible as well. But like you can just do a lot, especially in 2 or 3.
Well, if they're half move and they can't run or fly,
that's my point.
Then you've really targeted them into this electrical storm,
and that's going to be a devastating Skaven list. I think. Like you just do that turn 1, skittily, cast in shackles, cast in the storm, just block them in, and now they're like, they can
quite decent range as well. It's like 26 inches. Yeah, and then for the first one, and then the rest can go 7, slightly forward. So yeah, it's mental.
It's also it's really good. Let me say hello to everyone in the chat. Lubinsky says, do you think that the rise of shooting and magic, the Deep Strike plus Cogs armies will start doing better? We're going to talk about that later. That's part of our future meta conversation, I think, in a bit. Tyler Jacobs, hello. Rob Ellis, evening. Serbator, evening. I hope you're doing well. Chris and me are doing some painting tomorrow along with Speckles. Doing some Corn Demons. That's going to be fun. We explained the Horus Heresy of Speckles last Tuesday. Great fun if you get the chance to either watch it back or listen to the podcast. Badly explained. Matt Pashby, hi. Gorgeous American man says, I feel Geminids are fusing every turn all the time in every game. Couldn't agree with you more.
Geminids are just super good.
Yeah. And then my buddy's Gore program says, Slanice, hate my shackles because he can't dispel them directly in his way, which is really big as well. And we obviously know the Geminids trick of being able to lock in a monster that can't fly.
The shackles.
The shackles. Shackles, yes. The ability with shackles, to lock in a monster that can't fly because you can just put them around their base and then you literally can move block. Also, hi Brad Glover. Oh, gorgeous. I played Warhammer Brad Glover. Well, not with him, but he was at the 40k heats this weekend with that amazing. He has the Karajan Skaven army.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, really, really good. So, my advice is, and I'm super excited. This is just the How's Warhammer Been Recently section. But my advice for everyone, and I'm sure it can be doubled up on the Twitch chat, but would be go take a bunch of other spells and play with them, because I think that there's a game above or to the side, let's say the side. I know that when I played the other day, I played most of my spells really badly. The only one I feel a little bit confident about is Geminids, because that's been my most consistent. But I played the rest quite badly, and I could use them, but which meant I also used my wizards badly as well. You know, instead of just being at the back somewhere. Now you're lucky because I've done nothing but watch you run Goblin Shamans forward for most of your life. normally intending to just charge and punch stuff with the shaman because you're an idiot. But that means you've always had forward mobility on your casters, and I tend to be a little bit precious about that. So that's one of the things I learned, and obviously my guys are movement 4 as well, so that's a little bit impactful. But like, especially if you're rocking something like a Vampire Lord that's getting into your opponent's face, or like, you know, a combat caster that's going to go forward, then if you're in their lines or near their lines anyway, threatening a charge, shutting their lines down can be pretty big. Yeah, I think it's so. For in my opinion, and the other reason, because this is the other thing that struck me about this weekend when I was reading some of the Endless Spells for the two new books, is there's going to be Khorne. So there's 3 more Endless Prayers or spells coming out, and every battle tome that comes out will have Endless Spells. So you either learn to play in that phase or you don't, and you're going to not develop a set of skills, which is going to be really important to know. Like, so I think everyone, I intend to make my army a little bit weaker for the next 6 months, but develop a skill set around Endless Spells, just so I know how to use them better. I think, like, is the oh fuck me, what's it called? The Palisade. Is the Palisade as good as I currently think it is? Because previously I thought, yeah, but now I'm like, I actually think that's massive. So really, it's quite a big piece. It's got 6-inch range. On a 5-up, I'll make you -1 to hit. Like, and then you've got to maybe move past it. Can I put it at a place on the board, and it happens at the start of the battle round, the start of the turn, sorry. So do I put it in a place where you're going to run to? Do I stick it near an objective that I'm not going to contest in turn 1, but or like in turn 2 or 3, but I'm going to like try and jump over on turn 4? Like, have you put your caster somewhere else, and I can just leave it on the right-hand flank or the left-hand flank or somewhere that you're never going to have a problem with it? Like, what can I do? So I think that there's loads there to practice, and that's what I took away from it. I had a great time with it as well. Plus, it looks cool. It's paying them up. Yeah. All right. Yeah, good with that. Anything else you want to add to the Endless Spell chat? Scuttletide's good?
Scuttletide's great.
Okay.
So good.
And Archeon says 6 inches is big, but that's not what I get told. The new FEC Chalice is one of the best Endless Spells in the game, in my opinion, says Lee Bromley. So there you go. It is pretty decent. I think there's a new set of generic spells coming before summer, says Denise, and I think that's the gossip that we've heard as well, that there's a bunch more Endless Spells coming. And it would make sense, right? Because they've already got... It's a winning formula. I want more. Do you want more?
Yeah.
Do you actually? Yeah, I think so.
I don't think I've mastered the ones I've got, but yeah, sure, go on then.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, I think that... But what's nice is if you can master the Endless Spells, you can switch armies, but then you've still got that mechanic that you can rely on. You're like, I know how to work this quite well. So I think it's a transferable skill set. So that's what's quite important about it. And I don't imagine many of them. I think Geminids should go up in points. I think to 60 points.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sunny says, "Oh, this is a really good phrase. We could maybe put in something. Objectives are bait, and Endless Spells are the hook. That's quite cool." Imagine dumping like 4 predatory Endless Spells on an objective where your opponent's going to move, and then running onto a different objective. And your opponent's like, "Oh fuck." And Tristan Gray says, "All right, what about Gravetide?" He says, "If Palisade's so good, what about Gravetide? What do you think?"
I've used it twice, I think, Gravetide. It's a bit of a struggle to actually place because it's so big, and you have to basically put it in base to base with your wizard and then send it off. And I think it just gives you... So it does
gives you cover.
Yeah, it gives you cover, and it affects, and it's got the D3 mortal wound thing. Whereas I think Palisade is probably better because of the debuff.
Debuff's the big part.
Things that can buff. I'd like to see a few more that are buffed pieces.
That's where they fall into. Like, if you look at actually what they've done, debuffing seems to be a mechanic that they seem in love with at the minute. And then when we did see buffing pieces, specifically the old scenery table where you get +1 to hit or you can get reroll all wounds, they've generally moved away from generic buffs. And I would assume, so positive things, and I would assume that that's because they accidentally make things super crazy strong. And and therefore like they're like, oh no, whoops daisy.
So I guess Gravetide is actually a buff of sorts, but it's quite an awkward one. And
I think it's awkward. And also, if you are playing at tournaments inside the realms,
but it's a cool looking one.
It's a really cool one. But if you're playing inside the realms, you also all of those endless spells get like Palisade, for instance, in the Realm of Light. You are -1 to hit on a 4-up. Every unit within 4 inches is -1 to hit on a 4-up. That's massive. That's absolutely massive. So yeah, really worth taking if you get the opportunity. Elfbro says, I found every list I've written recently has 2 endless spells. Definitely add the extra tool that can help plug weaknesses in the army.
It's trying to make up for that rubbish army.
Yeah, I'm trying to make up for being an elf, I think. Milky Badger's also made a good point. Scared of predatory endless spells as they come to bite me in the ass. I think another thing that you can do with endless spells is you can just psychologically bully your opponent, because you put some spells up, they generally get super wary. They're like, I don't want this to hurt me, and I'm like, it's D3 more wounds, bro, it's fine. They're like, no, I'm going to run another way away from it. I'm like, I mean, they're predatory, but they're not that scary. And then Angle says, I don't think predatory turning back on you is all that scary if you're going for the goal, because it means they can't come at you without also being hit by the spell. So like, yeah, that's quite interesting. So you can make it so everything's kind of reduced. Anyway, that's that conversation, I think. But I think it's a really healthy one. And if anyone's got any experiences, I'd love like emails, Facebooks, or any of those businesses to let us know, or some pictures. I think one of the things that might be really fun for you and me to do, Nathan, is just get a bunch of spells out on the board and then show some examples of how they can be super impactful. Especially Palisade and Shackles is you can take up like most of a board with some area of like rolling. You mix that with this, the Skaven spell scares me, if I'm honest, because I don't want that. I don't know if I want that in the game. I don't know if I really want to just go my Skaven guy to go, I'm going first, then they skip Leap Wizard, they put Shackles into my army, and then they go, here's the fucking Warp Storm, and you're like, sweet. Like, I don't mind unbinding them, but if I don't unbind them...
you can't unbind it, that one is. So it's really hard for them to cast as well, though.
Yeah, it's an 8 to cast. Yeah, I agree, but then it's hard for you to stop if they get it off. Yeah.
What's Comet cast on? An 8 as well, is it? On a 7?
6.
On a 6, okay. Well.
Comet is really good. And then what's the Mushroom Bombs cast on 7, right?
6.
Okay, and you get natural, like you can get +1 easy, +2 a little bit easier, well, a little bit tougher, but +2 pretty easy to cast. So you potentially...
an Arachnarok's a good one for that, actually.
Yeah. Skaven have got casting on best of 3d6 for a few units, says Near Mouse. So thanks for that. So potentially even easier at the 8. I don't want that personally. I don't want that because I just don't want to have a non-game, because I feel like, but we'll get to that in the future of the meta later, because I think I have like a point to make, or I feel like I have. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So before we get on to the next piece, which is going to be a healthy dialogue full of jokes and light-hearted merriment. Does anyone have any questions in the Twitch chat? And Nathan, do you have any questions about just anything?
Why do you buy bananas all the time?
It's a good source of potassium and energy.
Oh,
Why? What do you think I should eat?
I've just been wondering about it ever since you spend all your Patreon money on bananas.
Well, it's quite healthy. I want to eat more oranges, but you start peeling them and then your hands get all orangey and they smell like orange forever.
You're such a millennial.
No, I don't
wash your hands.
I do wash my hands.
Jim.
I do wash. I use a limited amount of water though, because being a millennial, we can't afford too much water because we're saving up for avocado. But like, it's just I do wash my hands. They just still smell like orange.
Don't do it very well, do you?
Oh, for fuck's sake! Right. Hello, Omega Havoc. Why did I cut my hair? Because I saw a cool picture, and I was like, I used to have my hair like this, and I also wanted to grow a thicker, more powerful mohawk. Plus, Nathan beat me a Warhammer, so every time he beats me a Warhammer, I cut my hair. As you can see, this is the first time I've cut it in 4 years. Holy bananas. Hey, Smart Weasel. And then Jim980 says also +1 for bananas. So there you go. That's it. And the Twitch chat aren't saying anything helpful. So let's get on with the next conversation. Yeah? Ready?
Yeah. Right,
okay. So this conversation is meant... Oh, God. You know a conversation's always shit before you've got to prefix it, right? So there aren't many shows, I think, that approach some of the more divisive and interesting conversations that can be had about wargaming sometimes. So we're going to talk about dice apps. No, we're not. I used the dice app the other day. I like them. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, 2 things I've got to say about dice apps. 1, I had to roll 150 attacks the other day. It took me less than a minute to do it. Loved it. Yeah, it wasn't very interactive, but it saved me like 5 minutes. Sold. Number 2, if you ever turn up to a game and say that you're going to roll 420 dice in front of me, I'm going to make every save individually. 1, 4 up, 4 up, 4. I'll waste your time as much as I'll waste my time. What do you think is the minimum that a dice app should be used at? This isn't the conversation we were meant to be having, but I'm going along it now because fuck those guys. Go on, how many? Like, what's a ridiculous amount where you're like, do you know what? No, you've got to use a dice app.
I'm not bothered. You can use one if you want. For
No, right.
1 dice if you want.
No. Sorry. What I mean is like, at what point is there too many dice and you're like, look, fucking, you got to just use an app.
I'm not going to tell anybody what to do.
Well, it's because you're not an authoritarian, isn't it? Yeah. Come on, tell me.
I've just told you.
No, you're never going to tell. You never.
Never going
You'd happily witness 420 dice being rolled.
If somebody wants to roll 420 dice, I'll watch that.
Will you help them?
If they want a hand, yeah, I'll give them a hand.
You're so nice.
I'm not bothered. It's only a game.
No, I agree with you, but it isn't. It's a game. It's not a dice rolling experience. I actually have been to a dice rolling experience. It was an art piece at a local theatre where just a semi half dressed man and woman would roll dice and then perform intricate dance maneuvers around them depending on what they rolled. It was very interesting and eye-opening. I just So the chat is saying AD Max says 50, Matt Pashby says 60 to 70. Nikos says minimum 1, max 10. So anything beyond 10, Nikos is like using the dice app. 17, 40. And then Propagation says this is a bit dicey. Milky Badger says 100 plus. I think something, as you get towards 100 and 150, I think. I rolled dice this weekend with my orcs, and the maximum I could hold was about 40 in my hand. So, like, I would have to do, like, 2 lots of 40 sometimes. And I was like, don't say get bigger hands. If you say get bigger hands or smaller dice, I can tell you to fuck off.
I was thinking.
Which one were you thinking?
Smaller dice.
Smaller dice.
Yeah.
All right.
Because we know you can't get bigger hands.
You could get bigger hands. You get them like them superhero hands. Like you put your hands inside foam hands. Special dice rolling hands. There's a product we should make.
It's going to be great for picking up dice.
Well, no, what you do is you put the okay. So the hands click. Listen, makes sense. The hands click together. Yeah, right. Then you put the dice in them. Then you put your hands inside of the hands.
What, you mean a dice cup?
No, dice hands.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a whole hands. Yeah, you put the dice inside them. You put your hands inside. You then split them, and then you take off the dice hands, and then you do that bit. What do you think about that instead of a dice app?
Dice hands instead
Dice hands.
of dice app.
Dice hands.
Whatever tickles your fancy, man. Put it in a bucket if you want. It's the same thing.
Fine. Okay. All right.
I just enjoy the carnival of life as it wanders by.
Budtastic guy says, and you're worried about Twitch derailing the topic. That's on topic. Anyway, baseball gloves. Ooh, that's a good one. You could put them all in one baseball glove, and then be like, and then also if you both have baseball gloves, I'd be like 5, 2.
Sure.
All right, you're not into this kind of chat today, I can tell. All right, you ready? So the conversation that we're going to have is a topic, like I said, that I don't think many people will approach, and it's real simple. As we look at Age of Sigmar specifically, but Warhammer generally as a competitive game, because we do stats and we do coverage, and it's not like WWE where it's all real, and so the result doesn't overly matter. I just didn't want to say it wasn't. I just didn't want to say WWE wasn't real and just like ruin some kid who's at home paying him going, no, it is real. They're really fighting. No. What I'm trying to say is as a sport or as like a competitive event, like if you go to a competitive event like this weekend, you start to compare it to other competitive events. Yeah. So like we've had loads of conversations on the show. We've had conversations about like etiquette that they do in Australia, which is really cool, and about slow playing and whether like ways to try and tackle that or what the issues are. You know, a bunch of things. And obviously we did the workbook, and we made the site to help people like learn how to get into the game. So I think we've had conversations about some stuff that's problematic in the past. So one of the things that is interesting currently, and we've had this conversation a couple of times before because of event results, but there are two interesting topics I think we're going to cover. One is Games Workshop employees playing at competitive events. Number two would be playtesters playing at competitive events. Now, the prefix to this entire conversation is, number one, I appreciate and love all the playtesters playing, doing the playtesting for us and working hard in their free time to do the best job that they can do to make the game better for us. So, big love from me, and I really appreciate them. And I'm sure you feel the same. Yeah. And then secondly, I love that Games Workshop employees like playing the game as much as I do. I think that's great. An example would be this weekend. I was at the 40k Heat and I saw Eddie, my old co-host, her co-host from Warhammer Live, and he was playing 40k this weekend. And I would go up and talk to him and ask him how things were, and I know he loves playing Warhammer. And then I was sat at the end, me and him and one of my other friends, and he was just telling us how he was getting this aberrant to just like fucking deck a night, and it was amazing. And like I was just like hooked. And I was like, I love that. I love that the people who work there enjoy the thing as much as I enjoy the thing. Yeah. So there's no criticisms. The only conversation is how other games companies do it, and therefore how Games Workshop does it. Because just like how do you use social media, which is something that they're learning to do, how do they represent themselves at tournaments is a conversation I don't think anyone else is having, nor maybe that anyone else will have, and it might be just worth having that conversation. Is that fair?
Go on then.
Have we been nice enough about everyone before we start?
No, fuck you.
And Full Green with the chat says it should be like WWE. So before we get into the conversation, big question, Nate, should we actually just do Warhammer tables, ladder and chair style all in lycra spandex?
Yes. We've been doing it wrong all the while.
We have been doing it wrong all the while. So next Warhammer event, me and Nathan now commit to wearing lycra or at least leggings, yeah, and then some sort of vest top.
Sure.
And a bandana. 100% promise? Next event you and me attend?
I've not got any of that stuff.
We'll buy them.
If you buy me, I'll wear it.
Honest Wargamer leggings.
Yeah. I'll wear anything, you know that.
All right, deal.
I'll
Okay.
come as Rowdy Roddy Piper and wear a kilt. How about that?
Hi, Ace Face. And then the Templar says after Warhammer leggings, I don't want to see Warhammer spandex. All right, so jump me off, Nathan. What's your opinions before we get into the whole conversation? Or while we're in the conversation?
I don't quite know what people's feelings are on this, to be honest. But I mean, I don't think Games Workshop should really, because they tried to ban people from going to a certain tournament and stuff like that. So I don't think they should have any say on whether people go to tournaments or not. It's their own personal time, and they should be allowed to go to whatever tournaments they want to.
I agree with you completely. Like, I'd say that I think what an employee does in their personal time often isn't very integral to their job. Sometimes it is, though. It depends on the job. So I think the first thing...
Yeah, I mean, so looking at that, it does depend on the job. So, but this is a games company, and we're playing games. So I don't think at any stage can what they're doing affect... You know, playing games is games, and for a games company, it's not like we've got proper nuclear weapons or anything like that. It's dice at the end of the day. So, you Yeah, they just need to chill and let their employees go and play whatever they want to play, wherever they want to play. And I think also it's probably good for especially if they are in the design studio, that they should be playing at tournaments as often as they can, because the game they're making is going to be used in those tournaments. So if they're not participating in them, how do they know? They're just missing out on the experience, and I think that experience will just help in the making and the designing of the game. Definitely, I think they should probably be forced to go. If anything,
so. Yeah? I deeply agree with you in that sentence, and I think the same for the. We'll tackle two subjects. We'll tackle employees first, and we'll get to playtesters. Yeah, because they're different beasts. And you kind of have to, I think, initially. Number one, I couldn't agree with you more. I think having them at events is excellent, because I think if you take the design studio at Adepticon last year and their experience in 40k, they walked away from many of those games just oh wow, that's what you do. You can do all that.
But yeah.
So I think I agree with you.
And I think a lot of Age of Sigmar 2 has come about from probably them attending a few events, or at least watching some of the events. So you can see that the rules are all tightening up with the match play rules. I mean, the narrative stuff has just got as wonderful and as wacky as it's always been, and that's cool, because I think that's their forte, and I mean that's an awesome part of the game. Probably my favourite part of the game. But the match play stuff, they've definitely heading in the right direction and tightening it up. And the more they attend match play events and get involved in that side, then it can only be a good thing.
No, I agree with you. I do agree that they should attend and they should experience it. The question comes in two parts. Number one, when there is something on the line, as in a prize. Yeah. So attending is great, and should they be able to win an event? I would say in theory, yeah. However, there are a couple of issues realistically if you look at how other games companies do it, and also when you start talking about foreknowledge. And then I want to again caveat this with, I don't have a purpose to the end of this conversation. I'm just having the conversation. So I'm going to play both sides because I think that there are loads of sides to talk about. So number one, if you look at other competitive gaming systems. Now, Games Workshop kind of have boxed themselves in a bit when they've said they've gone to when they're making match play events. They're like, this is a match play event, or this is a championship event, or whatever it might be. So by creating those environments, there is a prize on the line. Yeah? And by there being a prize on the line, or there's something you can win. Now, at the Games Workshop tournaments, it's a certificate and a trophy. An independent tournament, it may be a box of models. So there's a monetary prize. If we take the LVO that we just saw, especially for 40k, there was like $5,000 or $6,000 on the line. Doesn't matter whether or not we agree or don't agree with that as a result. The point is, that's really interesting. Now, where it also so if you look at how other games companies do it, what they do is they say that yes, employees can attend, but number one, they have to identify themselves as employees, and they're not allowed to. There is some stipulations. Like I was looking at what Rocket League do, for instance, which is a game, and they only allow you to attend events where they're not part of their Pro Series, or there's a minimum number of, there's not a very big cash prize. Same thing is true for Wizards of the Coast and their Magic the Gathering employees. They're not allowed to basically enter their professional circuit effectively. Employees aren't. It's a bit like when you got the old Kellogg's, or you got your breakfast cereal, you could potentially win a prize, right? It's like employees are never allowed to win this prize. And then the same is true also for League of Legends, where they're not allowed to be members of, no Riot employees are allowed to be a member of pro teams or other sorts of teams. Now, the company normally does that, I think, for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's the argument and conversation about advanced knowledge and advanced practice. It's also true, by the way, for Fantasy Flight Games, I'm pretty certain. So there's that conversation that other games companies have already got an established process where they're like, no, our employees can take part in some events, but they can't take part in larger or more prestigious events. I'm with you. I genuinely am.
Just because they do it doesn't mean that they're right.
No, I know.
So
yeah,
and I think every case is different on its own merits. I mean, I guess I can see that, especially the foreknowledge thing. But at the end of the day,
well, we haven't got to there yet.
Yeah.
We're currently just talking about other companies do that as a process.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm with you. I actually quite like that they're plugged into our community and they're seeing what top tier games are looking like and also what builds are like.
And if they win, then that's cool.
Okay, and I agree with you there as well. I think that's really excellent. I think also there should be an onus on them conducting themselves in the very best way possible, because that's like a scary place to be, right? If you are an employee in the environment, you should be the very best of whatever the company says. So I think the employees should.
Well, yeah, I mean, there should be. You would expect them to have like proper sportsmanship and all of that, but at the end of the day, they are humans.
Yeah.
Employed.
Well, an interesting thing actually that Riot did, I find this really interesting, is what they did, because now again this is difficult to track inside Warhammer. What Riot did, and I find this quite fascinating, is they took the chat logs of like 30 poorly performing individuals in their company who had like disciplinary issues, and then they read their chat logs from when they were playing League of Legends, and they noticed that like 25% or so of them were very toxic. And then they kind of had this relatable thing where they were like, so you're quite toxic in the game. And then they showed them the chat logs, and then some of these people were fired, but then some of these other people like wrote essays and were like, I'm super sorry, you've like shown me that I've actually done some really bad stuff in the past. So bringing a light to it, which I thought was really progressive, right? Bringing a light to it and then helping those employees get better was great. And now they're potentially having a hiring policy where you have to give your handle, and then they scour through all of the games, because it's all recorded forever, and they read how you've interacted with the audience, because obviously they want good representations as employees, and I think that's really healthy. Do you not think? I think that's pretty good. You're marked by the no.
Don't know. That's a little bit Big Brother-ish as well, isn't it?
No, know. It is. I don't know.
And also, I mean, I can see what. Yeah, I don't know. Seems a little bit invasive, but fair enough.
But if you're
they obviously
they're going for the job.
Yeah, you're going for the job. You know about this up in advance. If you got a problem with it, I guess. Yeah.
So that's just what that's what some other companies are doing and what their process is. And I have to say that I think on paper, because and maybe they just do it as the standard. It'd be cool to like go and find some information out about it. But like it's always been the standard since I was a kid. I always knew that like an employee couldn't win like a company's thing.
Yeah, well, like Kellogg's. Yeah, I always thought that was because that was basically to stop people like taking stuff off the line and putting it in their pocket and then going home and sending it in, saying, "Look what I found in my box of cereal."
Yeah. So, now, and to be fair, it's very tough to do that inside a competitive game where you're rolling dice and you have to actually apply yourself. That's where we get to the next topic, I think, which is foreknowledge, and this is where it broaches both employees and obviously playtesters. The interesting thing about foreknowledge is, so you effectively know, and the example that we can have is this week. Both the Skaven and the Flesh Eater course book are out. So both employees and playtesters may have had the opportunity to be involved in the process of making them work for something like 4 to 6 months, maybe even longer, right? With that advantage, right? Let's just start that off, because I know for a fact if I had 4 to 6 months with a book, I would know better than had I had it for a week. With that advantage, and also with those models, none of them being new with the exception of 2, one for each book, I could build and produce an army. And I also know the potential of how strong those armies could play together, not just on a synergistic level, and also like a counter build level. For instance, Skaven's ability to just shoot out characters. Like I could just be like, well, actually, almost no armies have that potential, or they're not as good as that Skaven to do so. So I've got the strength. Now, some companies have like a block window. Again, I'm just going to compare it to other. What they have is if you're involved in the creation or the playtesting of, and you want to go to a competitive event, there's a window of time where your natural advantage, they say, like, let's pick 4 weeks. Your window of advantage is 4 weeks. So then what we're going to do is say that you can't enter an event with those armies for 4 weeks. You can still enter events, just not with events where you have foreknowledge, right? So as an example, this weekend at the Sheffield Slaughter, there will be players playing with armies who they've had months of foreknowledge with. I think the TOs are absolutely on the money with allowing those books to be played a week after release. I think that's great. And I know there's loads of people rushing and painting models, probably listening to this show, yeah, getting it all ready. Yeah. I think that's great. However, if you turn up with a month's deep advantage in the knowledge for how they work, do you not feel yourself, would you not feel you have an advantage over the other people playing? Would you feel you had one if you were in that boat?
Yeah, it's going to be great.
We're just going to go kick some nerds in the dick all weekend.
Well, yeah, don't say it quite like that, but I'm going to have a great time. No, I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one to police. Obviously, the answer would be TOs just saying that we're not going to use new books if they're within the month, of the tournament. But yeah, everybody's too excited and everybody wants to jump in, and so playtesters are gonna have that edge. They are going to have that edge, but then that's a really healthy conversation. So again, it depends what you want from events, right? And I also think playtesters, because I've read loads about playtesters today. I've read loads. You obviously, and I want the very best sorts of players. I want the most dynamic list writers, the best tactical... Well, you want the playtesters to be playing the game, you want them to be attending events, and you want them to be using the stuff that they're using, so that, because it's part of the playtesting thing, is that you're using them out in the wild, not just in a little room, in a dark room somewhere. So, I mean, you've got to try and pick the balance somewhere, and where do you pick the balance is a really hard thing to do, because
I agree, which is why there's no criticisms here. It's just a conversation.
That's
a conversation. I hope it ignites a conversation between all of us as a community, because I think that's really good. Because number one, what I want to do is support the playtesters. I'm like, thanks for doing a great job. Yeah. Whether or not they do a great job is another conversation for another show, yeah? And also how get playtesters are picked is another conversation for another show, and probably not one I even want to have, ever, because I don't care, right? It's not my thing. Personally, I just think the £300 million profit that they made last year, they should just get 10 or 20 full-time staff just playing the games all day, every day, and giving that information out. That's personally what I think I should do. I don't know why they're relying on people who already have jobs and careers to use their hobby and then also be removed from the community when you could have a bunch of people who you pay to play and attend events. I don't know why Games Workshop don't use the profits that they have to hire people who love and live Warhammer their whole lives, and they could be hired to make better games. Personally, that's what I think should happen, but that's a different conversation, right? The conversation we're having is I love that there's people out there trying to help improve the game by playtesting, and I also want those employees to attend. But we have seen in more than one occasion an employee with an advanced knowledge of the game, Shadespire, Nurgle, with advanced knowledge of games, winning tournaments. Now, they may just be good at Warhammer, and that's why they work for Games Workshop. That could be true. But that advanced knowledge is a huge tactical insight. I know for a fact, we just had a, 30, 40 minute conversation about endless spells that have been out for 7, maybe 9 months. Yeah, and we're now just like tackling it. The Twitch chat are just having a conversation. Some people out there are listening and going, "Oh, I've never used an endless spell. Maybe I should fucking start." So that's 9 months of lead time, and we're still learning, right?
So the same applies then also to the playtesters, really. That they might have had 4 months, but like we've said, 9 months was not enough, really. So.
But it is going to get better.
Yeah, they will have, exactly, like we said, they're going to have an edge. But then it's how much of an edge is it?
But it
depends on the thing. Yes, it is an edge. So, but, some people, there are loads of different things that will give people edges. Some people
like playing more.
Yeah, exactly.
Having more free time.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was going to say. If somebody had got the Skaven book, whatever, on the weekend, and they've got a half term all of this week, so they play 3 games a day every day this week. They might have played as many games as a playtester, and they've just gonna have an edge as well. So
I think it's, and I agree with you. So we both agree that there's an edge. right?
Yeah.
I think that's true.
And that edges can be gained in many different ways.
Also agree with that. Like massive. No, I also agree with that as well.
Yeah.
But all those other options are available to everyone. Everyone can play more,
Yeah.
and everyone can read more. Like now, obviously, you've got life concerns as well, but everyone can do those. But this is a closed system to be able to develop an edge.
Yeah.
Again, I want them to attend events. But my question is do you think that is an unfair edge? That's my question.
Yeah.
And I'll answer it as well because I don't want to just keep throwing you onto the spin.
I don't think it's unfair.
I think it's unfair especially because the way it works. I give you an example. Like the way it would work this weekend at Sheffield Slaughter is I may have been painting up a Horde army because Gloomspite Gits have come out, and I've been like, yes. Like Horde armies are cool. These 60 guys are -1 to hit, so that's really good. There isn't loads that takes out hordes. There's nothing in there, and in the space of a single week, not my army is invalid, but my army now has a major weakness now to Skaven because they've got some great horde clearing, and I think that's cool for the game.
Yeah.
But I now am hampered by no pre-knowledge. Everyone who was involved with pre-knowledge knows that they shouldn't be putting a horde together if potentially Skaven are going to be out there. Yeah. So, or they're like, well, actually, I'll try and shut down the ways that they're going to unhorde me or whatever it might be. So there's a bunch of tactical knowledge, which if it was a card game, maybe I could shuffle some cards around. That might be quicker, although that's being unfair to that community, the card-based community. But with this, I may have to rebuild a whole army. I've got 2 battle tomes. I don't know how they work in integration with everything else. And then I've got to go play them. I think that's an unfair advantage in the space of that week for those people. And I think realistically, if someone with that unfair advantage wins the event, you do have to ask yourself as a group, you have to say, well, is that really a fair victory? Because it's not who's the best general, it's still that as well, but I imagine playtesters usually are picked because they're a good general. So you've already got that. You and me are already great generals. You now, though, have a natural building advantage when it comes to list building, which is really important in the game. How important? It depends on how important you think list building is. I think it's quite important, and I know you think it's quite important.
Yeah.
And then
I definitely think they've got an edge, but I'm not going to say it's an unfair advantage.
You don't think it's
no.
So you don't think the other people at the event are at a disadvantage?
Well, so if you've got an edge, means you've got an advantage. So therefore, everybody else has a disadvantage.
Right.
I think if you're a teacher, this week is a half term, you've got an edge over the people that are builders because all the teachers are at home and they're employing all the builders to come and do work in their houses. So, I mean, there's edges and unedges everywhere. Life's not very fair.
No, it's not, and I agree with you loads there. It really isn't.
It's
but
within the realms of fairness and unfairness. I'm not going to say it's
creating a fair playing field is in part the idea of an event. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then they should allow battle tomes that are 3-4 weeks old.
You should only allow something like that.
Yeah, something like that. If that's going to be an issue, but I would never tell people that because I want the new battle tome, even if it means my army is going to get roasted alive. I'm like, bring the new ship. I want to see it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is super fair also for the playtesters, because I was reading this a lot today as well, they obviously, what they do is they play in an environment where there are metas that don't exist.
Yeah.
So obviously they'll play through several iterations of a book, or there'll be feedback between them and the design studio. Now this is not Games Workshop's playtest design studio conversation. This is other game systems. Specifically, I was looking at X-Wing today.
Okay.
So they may that when they're making decisions, they're making decisions based on like a couple of potential future kind of like gaming paradigms where a bunch of stuff could potentially happen. So what's really interesting is that they've got all those in their head. So when it comes to, because when let's say they're playtesting now, what they're actually playtesting is stuff several months ahead. So they may accidentally build lists designed on the future gaming environment as opposed to the current gaming environment. So it can get a little bit, chronological. It's like a film. It's like what if you're
watching Inception. Or something.
It's like watching Inception. Or more importantly, I imagine the
Matrix
feeling is a lot like being in one of those movies where they just keep jumping between time, and you're like, "Fucking, what time zone are we in?" Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's got to be really hard. Like, and I respect and appreciate that as well.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a disadvantage to you as a playtester. If you get there, you've just been playing one set of rules. You get there and you're like, oh, fuck, I can't use any of those rules. You got to, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's some questions in the chat, and I will take them in a minute before we wrap. So if you've got any questions to throw in or some statements, I'll read them out in a minute. I think my opinion is that I think it develops like a...
So what would you suggest?
I just think you'd have a window, I personally think. Like,
so how do you police a window?
You just have your microphone. I think the TOs, or like, and this is no conversation on any TOs we've got, because obviously Games Workshop have got their own tournaments as well.
Yeah.
And obviously we saw the shit show that they had with Shadespire last year with release, where they had a playtester just win the event, and they literally released them on that day. They released the stuff on that day, then a guy with advanced knowledge won that entire tournament with the stuff that was released that day. That's an incredibly unfair advantage. Yeah, right? Yeah. Right?
That sounds like a toughie. Yeah.
That's a toughie. And I think that they as a company, because I want this to be like a really healthy conversation, they as a company need to look at what other companies do and go, yeah, like that's not on. We can't have that happen just for the optics. Because so if a playtester with a new army wins at the Sheffield Slaughter this weekend, or an employee of the company with a new army, everyone's going to have that conversation. That's never going to be a healthy conversation. Just don't let it happen. That would be my first part. Just don't let that be a possibility.
Yeah. It's quite hard for them to police that because the Sheffield Slaughter is an independent tournament, so it's got nothing really to do with Games Workshop.
No, but what Riot or Wizards of the Coast or everything, they have something for their employees. Yeah, they're like, go to attend events, but you can't attend like events that like you can win money at, for example, or a bunch of other stuff. And I know you don't agree with that personally.
I don't think they've got anything. Yeah, they should have any say over what their employees do.
I couldn't agree.
And then, like the playtesters are not even their employees. So
no, and I agree with you as well. So I think then maybe it does come down to the TOs,
Yeah.
and maybe the TOs say, look, there needs to be a window, which is why we're having this conversation, right? Because let's say you're like, I think someone in the chat saying now, like LV, can we talk about the player experience? You're 4-0 going into the last round of the win of the whole thing, and you come up against an employee or a playtester in the last round playing that army that have come out a few days ago with a bunch of rules you've never seen or experienced. Regardless of whether the employee had an advantage or not, that's going to leave a horrible taste in the mouth of other players if they lose that game. I know that's why Magic the Gathering doesn't allow employees. It's down to customer experience. So, and that kind of has to be an onus, a holistic onus of the company. But
that's in their tournament, so not in independent tournaments. Is it?
I agree. So, and their way of policing that would be to have conversations with their employees, not playtesters. For TOs who are independent, as an example, if you were having let's say you were having an event this weekend coming up, and you had books out this weekend, would you have there be a grace window? Would you say, the books are in, but if you have prior knowledge, 2, 3, 4 weeks, or would you say,
just ban those people from attending?
No. You can play. Just you have to play with other armies. You can't play those specific armies, of which in this case it would be 2. And there are 30 armies. I probably should know the number of armies. I was like, what? And this is absolutely nothing on Sheffield Slaughter, because I think personally, I think this is just more of a what's it called when you do studying, and then it's that sort of conversation.
Shitstorm.
No, the opposite.
Storm shit.
No.
Piss.
Oh, no, stop swearing. Yeah, we were having a good one. What was I going to say? Fuck.
Stop swearing.
Academic conversation. It's more of an academic conversation.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Those are the two words.
You said shitstorm,
That
not
is
academic. You're an idiot.
academic conversation.
You're an idiot. Because personally for me, I think it's more of an academic conversation. Because number one, I like that the company's doing really well, and I'd like them to continue to do well. And optics of match play games has got to be an important conversation for them that they've got to have internally. Secondary, I love that, again, playtesters are doing really well and helping out the community. So I don't ever want to stymie them. Yeah. And I also think TOs are putting events on out of their own goodwill, so we've all got places to play Warhammer. So I don't think anyone's at fault. I'm highlighting the conversation.
Yeah. There's this.
Let's have a talk about it. Yeah. And if the entire conversation is fucking crack on, lads, we're having a great time, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm in, because I don't give a shit, right? Apart from if you try to roll 340 dice, and then I'll make each save one at a time.
But you're a bastard.
That's true. So, what do you think? What would be your window?
Yeah, no window, but I do agree that you're just highlighting something that might cause a sour taste to some people. So, people are gonna. That's where good sports and all of that all becomes part of the experience, really.
Yeah, I think so as well. Because the conversation we had about etiquette.
You're not going to see anybody getting any sports votes and stuff like that if they pitch up with a crazy bunch of
brand new army.
Yeah, with a brand new army with a crazy bunch of rules and play it like it's all slick and stuff. Yeah. So.
All right, cool. All right, so see what the chat's saying. Lee Bromley says, I would say only have idiots like myself and Speckles there should take the new stuff. I think that's absolutely fair. It's a doozy. Personally, I think a grace period of 30 days is good for everyone. And I think that's a healthy thing to say. Not because.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, it sounds great.
There we
go. But how do you police something like that? I don't even know who some of the playtesters are. Yeah,
and I don't think they should have to identify themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
No?
So
I'm not advocating for that. Yeah. Like, I'm saying, and if they I don't think that should be a thing that happens at all. Like, my conversation just is like, let's have a 30-day grace period. I personally would like.
But nobody can police. We're gonna have
that no one can police.
That's great.
Yeah, So this weekend, if you are playing against Flesh Eater Courts or Skaven, I want you to point at the person in the face and go, "Are you a playtester?" and I understand this is like the police. If you say yes, if you get asked, you have to say yes, because that's what you have to do.
Say yes, even if you're not.
Or take Skaven and say that you are, and they just have no idea what you're doing. Yeah. All right.
Just scare them off the table. So I'm a playtester. They'll be like, "I concede. Thank you."
Okay.
That's another one.
So someone says, so old ones, so don't allow, Dreadwoods is also reminding me to bring my fire elemental I will do this weekend. Not allow, stop fiddling with the top of it.
I'm trying to.
It makes a noise.
Tired. You've tied a huge knot.
You've tied it. If anyone would like to scrub back and watch some of the other videos where we can find Nathan just rolling his microphone cable around his finger.
I never tie knots.
I personally think I love that the new books are at an event. I like it.
Yeah.
Like, they're out. That's fine. Like, I want to see Trog Herds this weekend, and I best see Trog Herds.
You won't.
Yeah? I want to see Trog Herds.
There's no playtesters with Trog Herds.
Lofthammer's got a great opportunity. Just make people with prior knowledge drink more. That could be an unhealthy but smart. Sadie says, so to
just
recap...
bring them down to our level.
Sadie wants to recap. So I've cut my hair. There's no flano, although there's one here. Sadie, so fuck you. It's right there. Corporate buzzwords like optics. This whole convo is a preamble for my return to Games Workshop. Pardon me?
I didn't know what the optics thing was either. I thought it was something you have behind the bar for pouring shots.
It's like...
And I can't wait for the Games Workshop optics. Probably in the shape of a skull.
Banana TV says, thing with 30-day rule is that we're all incredibly excited to use the new books. Yeah, and I want to see them this weekend. I'll be excited. We're doing the coverage this weekend, right? We're streaming. I want to see those games. Yeah, that'll be really fun. And there's nothing worse with only a week for people to have built and put those armies together, production-wise, there's nothing worse than some of those guys maybe playing and be like, oh, I made a mistake there, because like that's tough coverage to do sometimes. You're like, well, he could have done this tactical thing, but he forgot his hero phase. Or, I mean, they're not going to forget that, but you know what I mean, right? Nikos, if you're still listening. Yeah, so we're incredibly excited to use the new books. I certainly would want to be forced to wait to use a new book just in case someone was attending, who had prior knowledge. So I think and I don't want there to be
somebody could read faster than me. Damn it.
Yeah. Jaboom says, I think it's a cool way of advertising the new stuff. I wouldn't mind losing Game 5 against a Games Workshop member of staff.
Who was that, sorry?
J-Boom.
I'm with you, J-Boom.
People bring old armies and players do not know the rules to them. I think it's not an issue, hence allowing them to slaughter, which I think is absolutely fair. That's from Eddie Mac. Charles Black says, back from walking the doggo, he's donating 100 bits. Also, Charles Black doggo is 10 out of 10. And Detemplar says, what about playtesters using dice apps? Fuck, that's my favourite. That's my favourite conversation. I like it when they do that. And then they don't use rulers.
For the priority roll.
Yeah, and they only use, what are they called? Optics for measuring.
I used to use a dice app in 8th edition.
Yeah?
Yeah, for my wizarding hat.
I know, I remember. The D8 dice app. And you'd be like, just got to see what my wizarding hat does. And I was like, fuck it, this is...
I hope it's Beast, I hope it's Beast, I hope it's Beast! Fuck. Shadow. Ooh, Shadow! I hope it's Shadow, yeah! Shadow was great.
Shadow was
Goblins. Great. Oh, my word. And Beasts.
Right, Beasts. Rob Ellis says, I think the Games Workshop are aware of the impact of the playtesters, identifying potential impact that may have when they go to events, because playtesters used to be in the credits of army books codices, and now they aren't, so that they can avoid having unfair criticism directed towards them. Yeah. Personally, I think there should be a grace period on people who have prior knowledge, however they come by it, attending an event.
With that army.
With those armies. Yeah.
So they can attend with other armies.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
and what do we do? Like put indigo ink on them that fades after 30 days so we know who they are.
A white handprint. Yeah, like Urukai. Yeah.
Make me an army worthy of Mordor!
No, I think that's fair. But some people pointed out it's a great marketing tool as well. Like you send someone in with a brand new army, they go
and a white handprint,
and they're like, you should all buy this new thing. It is great marketing, but I think it's bad because it doesn't. Because what it doesn't do is it doesn't create a valid environment for competitive play because there's unfair natural advantages. That's my statement. But that's to the holistic nature of a competitive environment. If it's only an event where we all turn up, name all our characters, shout stuff at each other and roll dice, which is fucking hilarious, and I'm super into that as well, yeah, then let's do that, yeah. Whatever.
Let's do that.
All right. Everyone's saying that so I personally think all events also, this is another conversation I want to quickly point out, there should be no tape measures allowed anymore, only whippy sticks.
I'm into whippy.
I know you are, but that's my next... and Andy Dunn says, by the way, Rob, love the Jean Valjean pre-redemption look. Thanks. This is... Everyone's liking the hair. That's nice. I don't want that to be the conversation. Let's move on from there. Hyro says, all players should have Logan's Run style light on their palm that goes out 30 days after army book release. But it should be in the shape of the army book, like a Skaven light up one, Glacier Courts one, that'd be fun. Yeah, alright, it's fine. The old whippy sticks are 17.5 inches and not 18 inches. So they're actually wrong, the whippy sticks. Also, I heard that people would bake their whippy sticks so that they were longer.
What?
If you don't know what whippy sticks are, then you'll know, and that's fine. And I also think bring back calipers for measurements. Calipers for measuring, dice apps for rolling dice. Everyone must declare what their job is before they start playing Warhammer. What else?
Playtest is not a job, though. It's a voluntary role.
It's true. It's a vocation, and those guys are heroes. Yeah. I say just let them play. So Jack Spencer, all the playtest mates jump on the right bandwagon too. Should be hard to police for the friends of playtesters. Yeah, because you can't guarantee that knowledge stays within. It's not a closed circuit, right? You can't guarantee that someone who has access to information doesn't then share that information, because Games Workshop themselves can't police that information. Yeah.
People got mouths.
Which is why I think they should just hire a professional team. Like, I really do. I just think they should take all of their, not all of their profits, but some of
I'm sure the shareholders would love you.
Well, if I took a minuscule, let's say they made like 200 million this year, or they just posted first quarter or first half was 54 million. If they took 10 people on 25 grand, that would be $250,000, and they would be doing 40 hours a week. So you'd have 400 hours a week of playtesting for a minuscule percentage of change. Yeah, that would be a better game, right?
Yeah, but less money for the shareholders. So fuck you.
It's not much less. And I tell you what, it would protect it. Oh, never mind. We won't get into business review.
You keep saying those words, but people are like, spend money. Fuck off. You're not spending my money on stupid toy soldiers. Give it to me. And sell more.
Okay, so I think that was a good convo. Do you think, does anyone got anything to add to that? I think this is healthy.
It was a great shitstorm.
It was not a shitstorm. I would like this to not turn into a shitstorm, or turn it into a shitstorm and I don't give a shit. Right, whatever you prefer. Do you think there's anything to add? I think that's covered all the topics.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
It's covered, not all of them, but loads of topics.
Well, no, it's covered all of that topic, I think. I don't think there's anything we've missed, realistically, which I think is good. And that's the thing about doing this show, right?
We should get a play tester in too.
You want to answer the questions. Yeah, so nothing to add?
No.
You good?
No. It's
Twitch
just
chat?
a little bit warm, but otherwise good.
It is a bit warm. Do you want me to turn the heater off?
Yes, please. I thought you turned it off earlier.
See, the issue is, everyone, if you're not aware, is Nathan's job is he's a structural architect.
I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Architect.
You're a structural architect. What's your job?
I'm not a structural architect. I'm a builder.
Same. You're in the management and redistribution of plaster across erect vertices.
Yeah. Something like
That's your job title.
I don't know what the problem was though, but still.
Rob says, why is it there a conversation about Warhammer being biased for people having archaic and weird measuring systems? Great follow-up question. Why do we measure everything in inches?
I think because the parcel size is better than centimeters. I mean, so an inch is 2.5 centimeters roughly.
Yeah.
So
no?
I don't know. It's nice to say 6 inches instead of 15 centimeters.
It's also much
or
more
150
fun.
millimeters.
It's also it's much more fun saying 6 inches. Like, I'll get 6 inches, and you're like, I bet you will. Like, that's never going to get old. Like, no matter how long I play Warhammer.
Some things you measure in inches. And
some things you do. Yeah. All right. So I think everyone in the Twitch chat's okay with that. That's fine. That's good. That seems to be a really healthy conversation.
Oh, how many are left? Just
loads of people are still here, and they're okay with it.
What about the Facebook people? I bet they're...
Facebook people, are you still here?
Kicking up a storm.
Do some love hearts. If you press that love heart button, Facebook people, and YouTube people, thumbs up and comments. I'll go see it on YouTube's. All right, I feel chuffed we did that, Nate, because I was a little bit... It's always a little bit strenuous, but I'm glad that we can tackle it. There's a ton of people on YouTube. I'm going to come see what those guys are saying and see what they're up to. They have said, Byron says hello. Helgi, oh fucking Christ. Get ready. Helgi Marfrigurison says greetings from Iceland. Scott.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah.
Wet Palette Warrior has just given us the thumb. What is Chick says, who do you think the strongest currently between Skaven Tide, Mixed, or Scryer or Pestilence? Nathan, what do you think?
Between Skaven Tide?
Yeah. Mixed, Scryer, or Pestilence?
Mixed.
No. And then Miri Astellan says, I play 130 skinks, 2 Engine of the Gods of the Slan list. Sometimes I roll something like 100 plus if they're firing all the same target. His dice. So he says he uses a dice app, which I think is sweet. But thanks everyone on YouTube for watching. You guys are babes.
Cool.
Yeah. Nathan, how do you quote for your erections when you're doing installations?
I use feet instead of inches.
I was defeated in battle on Wednesday. Nathan beat me in Warhammer, so I had to lose the braid, which are hashtag my Dothraki problems. But it won't be the same without a 75mm dick gauges. Mr. Kowalski, personally, if I was a playtester, I'd have a genuine moral conundrum about taking an army I have an advanced knowledge of to an event. Maybe that's why he's not a playtester. I think that probably...
There is that. I mean...
There's the personal...
I don't know how the playtester thing works. Like, how many goes at a book do they have? So how much knowledge do they gain? Like, if they just go and play a couple of games like 3 months ago, then it's not really that much of an advantage. I don't know how the process works.
Well, yeah, but having access to the book for a huge amount of time. And there's also a process where what they might do is give feedback and they might not see the final product until release. So that's a big deal as well.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, this is going to happen. Then they get there and like, where the fuck's that machine gun gone?
Machine gun. The machine gun.
Oh, we're not giving them machine gun anymore. They took
Where
it
are
away.
Where are them Wim Globadiers? That's the big question. Where are they, Nath? They're gone.
They're on the Isle of Blood.
Okay. All right. So I'm glad about that. If anyone's got any thoughts or feelings about that conversation, please tweet us or Facebook us or any of those things.
Yeah.
Again, it was meant with love, and it was only meant to open up like a really interesting dialogue. So TOs, people themselves, people in gaming environments can have a conversation. You can have a conversation with your friends about it. You can agree, and then if that situation
If anybody talks to me about it, I'm just going to kick them in the
If anyone talks to me about it, I agree. I'm also probably going to walk away. But please do reach out to us because we care deeply. Right. So
about anything else.
So the next conversation we're going to have, and the final conversation of the day, is the future meta. So this conversation that me and LLV obviously have, like with Stat Show, to a degree, especially like representation. It's one of the big conversations we have. How many of each army is turning up? So big shout out, and you can check them all out obviously on the Honest Wargamer stats page. Just go on the Honest Wargamer, click stats, and you can see it by date. And again, big shout out LLV for doing that. But more the conversation for you and me is going to be, how can people build armies now? Because one of the things, whether or not the Skaven book was coming out, shooting being back, let's say, puts a lot of our like smaller wound heroes in danger. So how do you think that the Flesh Eater Courts book and the Skaven, and the Skaven book are going to impact the game? That's probably the big takeaway. What do you think?
Well, I have to confess, I don't know much about the Flesh Eater stuff at all.
Okay.
So
I do. They're all combat. They could do some decent mortal wound shooting as well, depending on bravery. So your gobbos are in some issues there. But the main thing is they can do a horrifying amount of damage and even strike back when dead. In some cases, like
they're dead anyway.
Well, double dead, not undead, dead.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, right? So there's an issue there, and they can also do huge weights of dice attacks, and also they can do some high quality damage attacks depending on what build out they go. So that's not.
So they're very offensive combat army.
They are very offensive combat. Probably one of the
speedy,
very fast. Also, I think one of the probably key takeaways. Actually, let's jump to Flesh Eater Courts first. One of the key takeaways is their ability to pile an attack again immediately. That's actually quite impactful.
And that comes from a spell or a command ability?
It comes from a command ability.
So is it just on one unit or on like several units you can put it on?
I think it's on one unit.
But obviously command ability, so you can put it on more than once. You can use it more than once.
Yeah, I think, and I think, so what's key there is your ability to create screens.
And use Itchy Nuisance.
Use Itchy Nuisance, yes. Which is where you strike last, right? Yeah.
Pile in twice. After everybody else has fought you.
But that is an issue mechanically, which some people may not have experienced before, because what you might do is put up one screen and be like,
and they just pile through it.
And then, they kill that screen, and then, they pile through it.
But do we know, does the activation happen immediately, or do they have to wait their turn in between activations?
It's immediately, which is the issue, I think. So do you want to explain to people mechanically on the table, like where that becomes problematic, especially as it's fairly unique?
Yeah, well, I mean, the goblins used to be able to do that, but then they took that ability away from them. But yeah, so it just means that you can pile in and attack a unit, but then because you've charged, even if you're outside of 3, you can still pile in. So if the other unit is 3.9 away, you can still pile in 3 and use your 1-inch weapons to do
the damage.
0.9, a bit of an attack there. Or so it's really useful if you've got weapons that have got range 2 or 3, because then you can pile in 3 and still reach 3. So you've got a 6-inch double threat range, really.
So a big question to ask people.
Things that have got the extra pile in are even better as
range.
Well. Yeah. So some units have got 6-inch pile in. I don't know if Flesh Eaters have got anything like that, but if they do, then that would be horrendous.
Yeah, so one of the things to really ask your opponent if you are up against Flesh Eater Courts, for example, number 1 is if they have any models that have weapons that
what the reach of their weapons
what the reach of their weapons are, because that's quite integral. Because when a pile in 3 and then like you say, a pile in 3, so it's a 5-inch range beyond your screen. So you might just traditionally put a unit of models in front and then be like, I'm safe, they're going to kill those guys, but you now have to be aware that what they might do is kill those guys and then move forward that amount of distance. And don't forget also you need to be super aware of removing models as well, because if you can remove a model so that like you can keep the closest model being the one that's next to the unit that can pile in again, that means you're going to be able to manipulate their ability as well.
Yeah, they have to pile in towards that.
Yeah. So Jack Spencer in the chat saying that all the Dragon Bites are 3 inches, so 6-inch pile in and 3-inch attack. So that's a 9-inch range.
They've got a 6-inch pile in as well. Wow.
Yeah. So that would mean that they effectively have 9 inches beyond the chaff screen.
Well, you can give them those Griffonian gauntlets that give you that 6-inch pile in as well. 2 heroes if you want to.
There's also that. So a 9-inch attack beyond your chaff screen is quite hard. So what you could actually do is just line them up in 2 lines. So you might have to, all the way back to army building, you might have to go back to army building and go, okay, I did have 10 skinks, but maybe now, I mean, no one's ever had 10 skinks, but I need like 2 lots of those. And with their high mobility, especially on things like dragons, you're potentially going to have to create 2 or 3 screens. You might have to invest in more chaff than maybe you would do, just because of those mechanics, because that's quite rare and quite hard to stop.
Yeah.
So it's just a normal 3-inch pile, activating twice will make it 6. Says Jack.
Okay.
So they don't have a 6-inch.
No, not on this. Well, I mean, obviously, if it's a king on a Terrorgeist or on a dragon,
with the Griffonian feathers,
give them
gauntlets,
and let them, I'm pretty sure they're called gauntlets. Make you pile in 6.
Is it the Griffonian ones? It is, I think. Yeah. I had it on my Maw-Crusher one time at that event. Yeah, they're great. They give you plus 3 inches to your piling.
Don't tell them, they'll have an edge.
That's the whole purpose of this show. People listen to this and they get an edge. That's what we're doing. So mechanically, they pose a problem which some other armies don't pose, or potentially no other armies pose. With its Slaanesh have got something fairly similar. Well, they had something fairly similar. So that was...
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Nighthawk thing is similar. If they roll a 10, they get to do that extra fight, so they're getting a free round of fight. Yeah, but that's getting 2 rounds of combat, effectively, is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Because the first round can clear the chaff, and then you can just pile in and get into the stuff behind.
Yeah. So I'd say that that's one of those, with the exception of that and the volume of close combat attacks that they can do, or the quality of... They can still have a volume of quality attacks, as well as summoning. They don't pose any other different threat than other armies do. They're good, absolutely, and I think they're really, really strong. But they don't, like, apart from that, there isn't anything internally inside there that makes me go, oh no, I need to play differently to how I played before. I might just have to play more defensive, or like, there's a tough start, I think, with that army. So the combat armies may be doing worse because they can't beat that combat army, or you might have to think around it.
You've got to get them in the combats that you want to overwhelm them first. So a unit of witches could go into a unit of whatever they are and kill them quickly before they get killed.
Yeah. And that's going to probably the bit at the end I'm probably going to get to is I think that the game needs to have, like, people might need to start looking at going first and alphaing a little bit more again than they used to previously, because the high mobility is also the issue, because it's the fact that they can get there.
Yeah,
that's what's problematic. Yeah. Like, Ironjaws can't guarantee they're going to come and get there in the first turn.
It's quite random. Yeah,
it's quite random. So I think you got to focus on that. But I think, like Lee Bromley saying in the chat, you beat them by taking away their synergy or their characters, which is why I suggest an alpha, because you're going to need to remove their key threat, their buff pieces, so they work worse together.
Yeah.
Kill the king, and the serfs will die.
Well, you can just take the serfs home then.
Huh?
If you kill the king, you can just take the serfs home and make them your serfs.
And then Charles says, Rob, you're missing the 36-inch moving Cryptara shenanigans. I'm not. Just loads of units can move super fast. Like, that's not new. It's just fast. Like, which other armies can do? With Skaven, though, I feel that they're the meta-shifting army, in my opinion.
Shifting the meta towards Skaven.
Well, shifting the meta towards redundancy.
AOS is going to be Age of Skaven.
Age of Skaven, yeah. I think it's going to move it towards redundancy, because I think what you're going to see is their ability and capacity to take out your characters. So whereas you may previously have put one character in to do one job, you may now have to put in two characters, because that guy's going to get sniped out fairly easy, is my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, they've got a wide range of tools, haven't they?
They do.
So they're not pigeonholed into any specific thing, really, because they've got big fighty blocks if they want them. They've got fighty monsters if they want them. They've got tanky dudes if they want them. They've got tanky units. They've got and their artillery is bonkers. So yeah, and they've got great magic.
Yeah.
So what haven't they got? I don't know. What are they missing?
Yeah,
I don't know what they're missing.
I think they're. I don't think they're missing anything. I think they've got loads of tool sets, which I think is great. I think it's a great book.
But obviously, you can't put them all into one army. But still, you can build a great army out of them. Yeah.
I agree. I think where they shift, because what we haven't had for a long while, even though like the Stormcast came out and they released some pretty amazing shooting units inside the Stormcast, and everyone was like, "Yeah, nah, I don't want to do that." It's like, all right, okay, yeah. Even though everyone bought the starter box, everyone's like, "Have you got 2 ballisters?" Like, yeah, fuck yeah, I've got 2 ballisters. You'd use them? Nah, I'm not into that. Not like I've got 20 of these fellas that run and charge though. All right, cool, but what about them shooters? Nah, fuck shooting. Fuck it. Like, nah, I'll fight them. All right, okay. But I think the Skaven, some of the stuff that's really strong, especially, is the mortal wound shooting. Because we talked about earlier, the end of spells, we talked about getting +2 save on your casters. Like, it doesn't fucking matter against the mortal wound range shooting or the mortal wound spells. So I think that's pretty bad. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Skaven are going to be a real top contender.
I think so too. Yeah. I think so too.
And yeah, they're going to scare. So if you've got an army that relies on synergies from heroes that buff stuff, it's going to be nervy times, because those warp lightning cannons and some of those spells will just pick off heroes left, right, and centre.
I think that's going to be really important, actually. Like but I think dropping onto the Skaven army and then trying to shut down some of them pieces is going to be quite key.
Yeah, but yeah, so likewise, they're going to have those key pieces. So if you've got a deep striking ballista that can deep strike and shoot off
one of the warp lightning cannons,
then that's great, especially if you can do it in the second half of a turn, so you've potentially got the double.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's we're gonna have to see some more snipers, I think.
Well, people are gonna.
But the problem is they have so many threats as well across the army. So it's like, if I deal with that, then he's still got this and this and this.
And you can't put everything into a list, like you said. But I think one of the 2 key elements from that is, number one, their ability to remove your synergy, like, which other armies have had the capacity to do so, but the -1 to hit's been fairly useful, and you can double up on that, which I think is great. Then the follow-up, like Tyler Jacobs was saying in the chat, I appreciate that, is that hordes are now in all sorts of trouble. They can take mortal wounds for days, whether it comes from spells or warpfire throws or whatever it may be. Hordes, especially like 60-man blocks with the Gloomspite book just coming out, or just any sorts of hordes are in some pretty big trouble, I think, in the future, depending on how many people pick up Skaven and use them. Because that's the other key part as well.
Skaven bring hordes with them, so...
They do, but it's a bit like we talked about with the mirror match between MoonClan and MoonClan. The mushroom's so incredibly useful against other MoonClan armies. And yeah, anything that can... Skaven versus Skaven, they've got that really interesting mirror match as well. But when you actually talk about them in the grand scheme of things, they're quite useful. They have tools which they don't have to just... Like, they don't have to... It's a bit like the old Gaunt Summer on top of the Bellwind, right? You weren't investing loads of points to have a horde clearing unit, like, who was pretty safe and untouchable. And their horde clearing still requires you to get fairly close in order to do the horde clearing, so that puts them at a disadvantage. But losing a horde is pretty bad. So I think that they're going to reshift the game away from there being big hordes as well. Or single wound model hordes.
Oh, yeah.
So Gits are a good example, but Zangor are a bad example. Zangor will lose, or Bone Splitter hordes. 2 wound Bone Splitter hordes are going to do great because they're going to half their units are going to take more wounds, but it's going to be fine. They're not going to lose half; they're only going to lose a quarter of that unit, which is pretty big. So yeah, do you think? Are you scared now with Skaven on the field of putting 60 grots out? Are you going to reduce that down to 40s, or are you going to move it around? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I don't think I was ever going to put 60s on the field anyway.
Why? Why don't you want them to have mates? Like, just. If I don't go out with all 59 of my friends, I get really upset. What do you think?
No, I mean, I just wanted the points for all the other cool toys. So. And that's the thing with the Gits book is you can't afford to take blocks of 60 and still have some of the cool toys. So.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that's fair enough. Asmodai says he needs more snide comments from you. He's losing his immersion, which I think is fair.
More giants.
Huh?
More gargants.
More gargants, yeah. Donaldina says 60s will still be amazing because you get to roll a 4+ and you get to bring 30 of them back, which is good because you can. That's a good point, Donaldina, because you can sacrifice that horde to get those key horde killing units to draw those units out, and you can do some trading, which is really fun as well. So yeah, there's some options of potential there. It's really interesting in an objective-based game as well. And also, you can't really argue with Git's capacity to just have command points coming out the yazoo. So yeah, they might lose 30 grots from a unit, but they can be inspiring presence on an objective all day long, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's really strong. But other hordes maybe have got some issues. I know I was going to run a Saurus warrior horde, but...
But now you're giving
but now I've given up. Now I've given up on it. Like, it was definitely something I was going to do, though. That's some heavy sarcasm because a Saurus horde would suck balls, in my professional opinion. Unprofessional, whatever. So I think what we're going to see.
Get your balls sucked by Saurus warriors.
Just it'd be scaly, right? So I think there's the issue. I think there's the issue with hordes now, or like you need to be aware of it and be like, oh, they weren't as safe as
yeah, you're going to have to play with your hordes a bit more carefully. I mean, hordes of witches with the 5+5+ ignore, they'll probably still be like, yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah. Well, we might see things like plague monks come, not plague monks, plague bearers come out. I was actually thinking earlier, like, it seems like Nurgle would be a really strong counter pick for Skaven because they've got so many after damage saves. So there's mortal wounds, they've still got saves happening. Which is really decent. They've got really strong tanky characters, which is really cool and decent. And also their blocks themselves have got those after damage saves and all the minuses to hit. Yeah. So, like, Nurgle seems like it would be like a
good counter. Yeah, because, I mean, the big blocks of Skaven are still fairly fragile, so you don't have to hit them that hard to start killing them.
No.
So...
Yeah, and Asmodai says, I'm painting plague bearers, so all in caps, so maybe he's ahead of it.
Playtester!
Playtester! For the new Nurgle book in 8 weeks, or whatever it might be. Skaven do have a command trait that lets you steal a CP on a 6, so if you got real lucky, that's a bad day for your opponent. That could be fun.
Sure.
That'd be fun, but don't worry, Gits have got like 32. Like,
we quite often give a few to your opponent anyway.
They're like me.
I've got too many. Yeah, have some.
Do you need some sort of like CP hands for me to, so you can hold all of your CP inside? Some prosthetics.
Yeah, a bucket.
A bucket. So do you think anything else because of these two books is going to change? And everyone, that's a question to everyone in the chat as well. Do you think anything else from these two battle tomes is going to change leading up to the Sheffield Slaughter, which you can watch the coverage of this weekend at the Honest Wargamer? I'm quite excited to see that. Do you think we're going to see much over the next few months?
Yeah, I think people are going to start kicking rats because they're going to have hatred of rats. So yeah, if you're a rat, best keep your head down low.
Keep your head down low. What if you're a love rat?
Keep your head down low.
Keep your head down low. All right, fine. Okay. Yeah, so I think those are the two things I really wanted to talk about. I think that Hordes are going to have some trouble, so you may want to rethink whether or not you're going to take a Horde. Because the Horde discount's always something that's really decent. I always, as soon as I see I can take X, I always like, well, if I max it out, do I get some points back? So that's always really useful.
Yeah.
And then also your characters, you might have to put some redundancy in your army to protect against your characters. And you may also have to add in an extra chaff screen that you weren't planning on having
for those flesh eater
cores. I think those are the three things that I could think through, or that I thought through. And I also think overload on wizards, personally. That's like the key takeaway from the...
Play 5,000 point games from now on, so you can fit all of that in.
What?
Extra chaff screens,
redundancy, wizards, just all of that. That's what I want you to do.
Every single endless spell.
Yeah.
Maybe 7,500 point games.
Malik is saying more alphas, less hordes. Stormcast might get super strong, which I think is true. But elite armies suffer to mortal wounds, as we've experienced all the time.
Yeah,
right?
But if they're not on the board, they're not taking the mortal wounds.
That's a really good point. And Griff says, Flyslayers are strong counter to Skaven, saves against mortal wounds, and the hordes that don't require their heroes to function.
Yeah.
That's a really solid point. Thanks very much, Griff. Good point. 2K9. And also Blightsist, Maggot King, Nurgle with their low model count and mortal wound save. So yeah, there we go. So you might see those people. So if you're like, right, these new books are out, but I don't want to play them, I want to beat them, maybe potentially move towards Fyreslayers. Maybe.
You're so racist against Fyreslayers.
Only towards other dwarves that aren't the current best performing dwarven faction in Age of Sigmar, the Legion of Asgore. Or, yes, Nurgle, I feel like would be a positive counter, I think. That's how I feel. And also things like the Thricefold Befoulment. It's got a lot of spells they could chuck out. It's quite resilient, but probably not that, because then you don't get a lot of board control. I also think board controlling against Skaven would be quite useful. Because they've got the warp holes, but if you can do it in an early board control like Sylvaneth, you potentially can outplay those warp holes, which is quite useful.
Yeah. Gore Pilgrims, they're always great.
Huh?
Gore Pilgrims.
Also just play Gore Pilgrims. Yeah. Just always play them. All the time.
Yeah.
I only take Gore Pilgrims now. That's my thing. All right, so everyone, thanks for joining us. We've got to do, so we're having the show a little bit earlier this week, but that's because we've got loads of stuff doing the coverage at the Sheffield Slaughter this weekend. So
we're going to do some press-ups.
We're going to do some press-ups and some stuff. I'm super excited. The TOs are awesome, so I'm really looking forward to that event. There's going to be loads of people there, so if it's your first time at an event or first time you get to see us, please come say hi. That'd be really fun.
Especially if you're a playtester.
If playtester, give us a cuddle, and we'll give you a cuddle back. Be like, well done on doing okay.
Make me an army.
Yeah, yeah. And then we will surreptitiously put a sticker on their back that they don't know about. So that's going to be really fun. Nathan, who do you want to win the event?
Just whatever playtesters are there. If
no, the army, you knob jockey. What army do you want to win?
Gits.
Huh?
Gits.
Gits. Look out for...
But Skaven will win it.
You think Skaven will win it?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. The big question is, so don't check out the Honest Wargamer Twitter and Facebook for when we do get the lists in. We're going to put them all up on the website, and then you guys will be able to check out all the lists as we go through the weekend. We have a new commentator joining us this weekend. We have Mr. Adam Chucklebutty who will be doing his in-field reporting as per usual, so get super excited, which is great. And then we obviously have me and you, Nathan, the classic combo. Yeah, okay. the chalk and the cheese.
Yeah.
The mouth and the motor. And we're joined by A thespian. We have a new co-commentator this weekend.
Are they allowed in the country now still, even with Brexit?
Thespians?
Yeah.
I don't know. What, from Thebes?
From Thrace.
From Thrace and Thebes. I don't know if they're allowed in, but it's going to be a Midsummer's Night Dream, and we're going to be joined by Mr. Adam Kunis himself.
He's doing talking and not playing.
He's going to do some talking and not playing, so he's going to come and join us and do some co-commentating, which is cool. Part of our co-commentator trials, when we open the Honest Wargamer Commentating Academy later this year.
Sweet.
Go on, respond to that. Go on, say something. I heard you made a joke in your head.
Did I?
Yeah, go on. Say what you got to say.
I thought you made the joke. I was just laughing.
That's not a joke. Why would that be a joke? An academy, that's great. Who doesn't want to go to an academy? One day, one certificate. Great fun.
I don't want to go to an academy.
Why don't you want to come to the academy? You're a teacher at the academy.
I'm not allowed to say what. Why?
Hi, Hoikon Wargaming. Budtastic guy, thanks very much for watching. A good show today, lots of fun live, even more fun live. So yeah, Adam's going to be popping along.
Cheers.
So give him an don't bully him too much, Twitch chat. Hashtag please don't intimidate the commentators.
Do they do that?
Who? The Twitch chat?
Yeah.
Not me, but I'm fearless. I don't give a shit. Plus, our Twitch chat is horrifyingly scary because, number one, we've got some new moderators in the chat who are great. And also, everyone on our Twitch chat are people who follow this show, so they must be terrifying individuals.
Cool.
You best come to this Twitch chat correct, otherwise you're going to get shouted down and told to leave. But please, friendly environment, come and join us this weekend live. And join in the chat. I personally want... Who do I want to win?
Who do you want to win?
No, not who. What army?
Who do you think will win, and then who do you want to win?
Armies.
Different questions. Different questions.
I think it's hard not to pick the natural advantage armies of Skaven and Fleshy Courts. But based on overall... See, I still think that the Nagash... 120 skeletons build is super strong. I don't know if anyone's bringing that, but that's
I heard
I can't.
That fella's coming.
Shut up, is he?
I don't know. No,
what? No way. Hashtag play like Alan.
Yeah, I bet he'll be.
Is
there.
Alan coming? Well, I'm picking
I don't know.
Alan.
Ask Paul. He might know.
Huh?
He should. There's a whole team of them.
Okay.
Team Alan.
Lofthammer, gorgeous man.
Yeah.
Who do I want to win? I mean, Gits would be cool. The Gnarl route list, I don't know if anyone's taken the Gnarl route list, which has got no Alariel, but it's got loads of endless spells. So you get +1 cast to each caster that you've got. So then it turns all the 100-point casters into double casters and then a bunch of endless spells. I think that's wicked. I'd like to see that at least play. And then if it has a ton of Dryads into it, then it could do some cool ball control. That would be fun, I think. It's a bit denial and a bit not necessarily super interactive, but for a mechanics point of view, it would be super interesting to watch, in my opinion. That's what I'm super excited about. Legion of Asgore, because obviously doing great, but I don't think anyone's bringing them. Carriage and Overlords. I want to see Carriage and Overlords on the table again. I want to see if it's like a one-shot pony. I laughed at my own pun. That's terrible. But yeah, it would be cool to... So I think... I don't
Fire
think anyone's...
Slayers?
Nah, fuck them.
So racist.
So racist. By the way, apparently there's hashtag Play Like Alan t-shirts, which is going to be fun. And if you don't know what that means, go back and watch our coverage of Crimbobo, where we saw Alan play on the top table to potentially win the tournament. Fuck, you really put me on the spot. I'd like Seraphon to win. I'd like them to win, but I don't think they can.
Okay.
And I think... Oh, that's boring, isn't it? Legions of Nagash are just so competent, I think. I like the Stormcast list as well with the Hurricane. Fuck it. I'd like the Bannister... No, I'm not saying Stormcast. I'll never say that. I just caught myself. I was like, shut up. No, fuck that. I can't decide.
Who do you think?
Who do I think is going to win?
So you want Seraphon to win?
I want them to win.
Yeah.
Just for my boys. All hell the Blot Toad.
Doesn't matter whether you want them to or not. Who do you think will win? You've just said every army under the sun.
Yeah, Flesh Eater Courts. I think Flesh Eater Courts will win. Because there's people there who are already good generals, with natural gaming advantages. They've been playing for months with armies people don't know how to play. Like, that's just devastating. Even going into games 4 and 5 on day 2, like, not knowing how... Every gamer worth his salt will tell you, oh, first time I played that army, I completely played terrible, but now I know how they do. And there's such a power in that, especially in this game. Like, that I think that, yeah, that's the power. I think Flesh Eater Corps will win because there's a natural advantage. And if they don't, that's great. That's super healthy for the game. But I think, like, not knowing how an army works is an untold advantage, in my opinion. So you want Grotz to win, but you think Skaven will win. Oh, so we both pick different books. That's cool. They are good though, Skaven.
Yeah. I don't know. I reckon the WS10 guy with some Skaven will win.
About yay big. Almost Skaven height.
No, he's the same height as a normal human being.
If he tiptoes. Alright.
Who are you thinking of?
Nick.
He's not. He's 6 foot.
Nick Thompson?
Yeah.
He's 6 foot?
Yeah.
Is he? I'm 6'2". He's 2 inches smaller than me.
Yeah.
He's just got a presence about him that seems
a
more...
short presence.
What? Yeah, short presence, but more commanding, like a king of Erebor. There you go. I've called him a dwarf in that. I know I've dug that hole deeper. Just like he does, because he's a tiny dwarf man. Jim980 says, Shooty Skaven will win. Dude980 says, I'm excited to see Nikos on the table. Does it involve ice cubes? And Lee probably says, it's a lovely thing to say about me, Rob, talking about Flesh Eater Corps. So yeah, exciting weekend. If we get the opportunity to do any more coverage about Slaughter before we get there, we will. This has been a great time. Thank you to everyone on Patreon and Twitch. Specifically the Twitch chat, YouTube chat, and anyone who watches these shows back. You guys are great. I keep trying to reply to everyone at the minute, so I think that's working. That's it. Nathan, you got any shout outs to say to anyone?
Get a proper army, Elfbro.
I think he's gone, but that's fine. Also, again, thank you to everyone who is part of the GoFundMe to get Clint over. I'm super excited about the Australian and English TO. Also, big shout out to Matt Pashby, who is, I think, flying over from America to take part in Bobo, to play. And in his exact words, kick the fuck out of all the English because us Americans are way better. His words.
Good.
Yeah, good.
We're going over to Adepticon, so hopefully they can kick us about the floor a bit, show us how it's done properly.
Yeah. After last week, I think everyone in America's like, I can't wait for you boys to be in Adepticon. You're getting you are getting tabled every game. That was scary. But yeah, you guys on Twitch are great. Thank you. Please join us this weekend live, English time, somewhere around 9 or 10. Check out the Facebook pages. Where we'll be doing all the games, we're doing the coverage. Chucklebot will be doing his infield stuff. We may have a couple of games going at once as opposed to just the one. So get ready for an exciting weekend. Get you some beers at home, some nachos. Nathan, when you're watching Warhammer, what's your favourite snack to eat? This is where you make the joke that you never watch a game of Warhammer. Fine, fuck you. But after
You've done it. Just took away my
your one joke.
My thunder.
Yeah, go on then.
Biltong
and
Drivos.
Biltong and Drivos. Okay. All right, cool. And Hellstorm Dan says, "Can we get a fuck you from Nathan before you go?"
Fuck you.
Right, good. Very much appreciate that. Everyone, you've been great. Thanks for joining us. And as always, don't forget, every army is a winning army, especially if you've had months of advanced knowledge about it.
You're such a coward.
Yeah, I'm a coward. Why?
Just coming up with excuses all the time.
Oh, right, yeah, that's good. I'm not playing.
It's even worse.
What's a monologue, Rob? The Templar? I've never known. What is a monologue?
It's the best thing ever.